Do you love going to Broadway shows, but can't go now because Broadway's closed? Join tour guide Tim and Belasco too as they bring Broadway history to you. Grab your Broadway passport for what's in store on your Virtual Broadway Tour.
In the early 1900s, vaudeville was the most popular form of live entertainment all across the United States. With many different producers looking to cash in, two opposing groups rose to the top: Martin Beck and the Orpheum Circuit, and B.F. Keith and Edward Franklin Albee and the Keith Albee Circuit. In 1901, a gentleman's agreement was struck between the two opposing groups. The Orpheum Circuit would operate west of Chicago, and the Keith Albee Circuit would operate to the east. It was in 1913 that everything changed. Martin Beck decided to build his crown jewel, the largest vaudeville theater ever. The problem? He planned to build that theater in New York. As the walls of his new Palace Theater rose into the sky, Keith and Albee sprang into action. They quickly made it known that any performer who appeared at the Palace would be blacklisted from their circuit, effectively eliminating any chance for A-list acts to perform at Beck's new theater. As a result, the Palace opened with third-rate vaudevillians to poor reviews. Beck was forced to capitulate, give away 75% of the theater's holdings to Keith and Albee, and take a back seat in the management of his crown jewel theater. Oof. Financial dealings out of the way, the Palace quickly became the most renowned vaudeville theater in America. The old saying went, "You haven't made it till you played the Palace." Famous acts who played the famed theater include Harry Houdini, Mae West, the Marx Brothers, W.C. Fields, Will Rogers, and sadly, even Helen Keller was put on display to make money. My favorite act? Odiva, the plunging Samoan nymph. This woman would set up the largest water tank ever constructed on stage and perform fancy diving and feats of grace while swimming in the tank full of sea lions. Vaudeville thrived until the late 1920s. Then, as radio began to grow, vaudeville declined. The stock market crashed in '29 and the Great Depression were the final nails in the coffin. Since the Palace had housed vaudeville performances exclusively, the theater struggled to remain afloat. The producers resorted to broader fare: big bands, one-person reviews, short movies, and circus acts. The second week of July 1932 was the last straight vaudeville bill on stage at the Palace, and it wouldn't be until 1966, when Sweet Charity opened, that it would be back to its old, successful ways. Across the street from the Palace was Duffy Square, which became almost as famous as the theater, for all the wrong reasons. All the vaudevillians who weren't quite A-listers would congregate in Duffy Square and peddle their acts on the sidewalk in hopes that they'd be discovered. This area's nickname was the Beach, and as for the struggling performers strewn about, well, a phrase is believed to have started because of them. That a has-been performer was said to be all washed up. Ever persistent, long after vaudeville ended, performers could still be found on the beach looking for work. What's on the beach now? At the southern end is the George M. Cohan statue, erected in 1959, giving his daily regards to Broadway, surrounded by 330,000 daily tourists. At the northern end are the famous red steps with TKTS underneath. And in between, right where the beach performers used to stand, a theater district map of every Broadway theater. Well, almost. It's missing the Hudson Theater because it was created in 2013 before the Hudson was renovated and reopened. But that'll be our little secret. The corner where the Palace Theater now sits at 47th Street and 7th Avenue has seen its fair share of renovation. Construction began with horses and carts to construct the Palace in 1912. In the 1980s, the Doubletree Hotel moved in, lopped off the first portion of the Palace that wasn't landmarked, and built their entire structure above, completely encasing the landmarked interior of the Palace. Now, 30 years later, the construction on that corner has resumed. The new tenant? The $2 billion TSX building. To create this new addition to Times Square, half of the Doubletree Hotel has been removed. The Palace Theater, to accommodate more prime sidewalk level real estate, is being lifted over 30 feet into the air and then renovated for approximately $50 million. In addition to retail, hotel rooms, and restaurants, the entire face of the TSX building will be able to open like a garage door to create an open-air concert space overlooking Times Square. Futuristic for sure, but all the while, the Palace, with some new plaster and paint, will, in theory, be the same landmark theater it's been for the last 107 years, just 30 feet higher in the air.
Hi, hello, happy Saturday noon on Broadway as part of our Virtual Broadway Tour Series. My name is Tim Dolan. Thank you for spending a little bit of your Saturday with me. This week, we are featuring the Palace Theater, and we're joined by Michael Patrick Walker. He was keyboards and assistant conductor of Sunset Boulevard and lots of amazing other shows. He wrote Altar Boyz, a favorite show of mine. We're going to have fun. It should be a great time. For those that aren't familiar with me or Broadway Up Close, my name is Tim Dolan. I'm an actor and the owner of Broadway Up Close walking tours here in New York City. For the last 10 years, our tours have unearthed secrets, fun facts, history, ghost stories from the 41 Broadway theaters. I have an entire team that I call my green team that are actors and stage managers that are your windows and your eyes to the world of history and theater and Times Square. Last year, we opened our gift shop in the middle of Times Square with a 6-foot-tall Broadway sign with marquee letters spelling out my favorite word, Broadway, 150 light bulbs. It's currently not lit up thanks to COVID-19. Welcome to my life. When we are in operation in full, we have 5 exterior tours. We also opened in the fall our first interior tour, which is the interior tour of the Hudson Theater, Broadway's oldest. For info on all of this, you can always visit www.broadwayupclose.com. You shouldn't do that now. You should do that after we're done talking to Michael, and then you should go look up my life and join for a tour and buy things and do all of the things. March 12th, 2020 was the day that in our tour guide community we call Red Thursday, when everything shut down. It very quickly went from one usher passing out some playbills and testing positive to the whole world, it seems, shutting down in a matter of 48 hours. I thought, okay, it'll be a couple weeks and then we'll be back on. And then it was a month. And then it was now 6 months. I think it'll be another 6 months at least. I think we'll be shut down for a year. I started to miss connecting to theater goers and people and friends. It's just basically me and my French bulldog Belasco. And so I thought there's got to be a way to bring our stories online. Maybe we'll do a virtual Broadway tour. So that's what we've been doing every week. I had the insane idea to do all 41 Broadway theaters. So that makes it 41 weeks, which will bring us to March 2021 when I'm finished with this. That means here we are about 25% of the way through. We are in week 11, which is the Palace. I hope you've enjoyed all week the history and fun facts this week. How is today going to work? For today's series, we'll learn all about Michael's theatrical journey, his time working at the Palace Theater, and his role as assistant conductor and keyboards and fanciness. If you have any questions for me, I see some of you have already dropped where you're from in the comments. Hello, thank you. If you haven't done that, do that for me. And if you have any questions along the way, we're an open book. So drop them in the comments. We'll bring them up for Michael to answer. If they're for me, they're for Michael, whatever you want to know in our lives. This is your next 35 minutes in your life to do that. And so, without further ado, join me in welcoming Broadway's Michael Patrick Walker.
Hey, Tim.
Hello,
everybody.
Happy Saturday. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? A very gray Saturday, but a happy one nonetheless.
Great Saturday. You're in New York. You're outside of the city. Where are you?
I am in New York for now. I've been splitting my time between here and up in Connecticut, back and forth, based on, well, whatever craziness is going on at the moment.
Correct. Sounds about right. Yeah, it's threatening rain outside the entire day. So it should be a glorious, beautiful singing in the rain type day, I guess.
Yeah, you wouldn't be out there today anyway, right? So
this is correct. Well, we just started, the last couple of weeks, we just started doing socially distanced mass tours again of our 5 exterior tours, which it feels wild for like 3 minutes. And then it feels normal, and it's very normal. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, here we are. For those that don't know you, will you tell us about where you grew up, where you're from, early music experience, theater experience, if you went to school for theater, and get us up to like when you moved to New York City if you weren't from here, and then we'll start talking about your keyboard life and orchestra life and all of that.
That'll take a while because I am
Correct.
73 years old, but I'll try to jump through it as
But
quickly.
you look so good.
Well,
Yes.
work, all the work.
Well, the condensed bio version.
That's
I
right.
should say. Okay.
Look, the very quick version is I grew up in rural Pennsylvania, sort of halfway between Philly and Pittsburgh, but a little closer to Philly.
Okay.
South of Harrisburg, Lancaster, that sort of area, although where I grew up was much smaller than any of those places.
Sure.
Went to, as a kid, like at 4 or 5 years old, approached my parents and asked for piano lessons out of the blue. For whatever reason, they didn't send me away to play. They said, all right. And so that was sort of the start of music and learning how to play the piano, which, led to chorus and theater and all that sort of stuff. Went to college in Pittsburgh, Carnegie Mellon University.
Wow.
Did a lot of theater and music and singing and ins and outs and everything. Moved to New York a year after graduating, which, I always say, like, whenever you make those leaps, you look back on them and go like, my God, I would never do that now. I think I had like $500 left in my account when I got to New York.
Yeah, it's the naivete of youth. You're just, you don't know any better. You're like, this is thoroughly modern Millie. This is what everyone's done. So I will also do that.
My suitcase and my cap and spun around and did the whole thing.
Sure.
But, and again, was very lucky because relatively quickly after that, by which I mean like in the first year, managed to start working professionally, and then that is the condensed milk version of the bio up to New York City. But that's how it all happened.
That's crazy. Okay, so then let's jump right in. If for actors, you graduate school and then you get your backstage and you show up to Ripley Greer, Pearl, or whatever, and you go to your open calls. For musicians, there's no open call, sit here and play piano. So what is your first professional job? How does that happen? How does any of that ever facilitated?
It is really tricky because you're right. Like, I mean, actors have a very difficult job because you go to those auditions and there's 700 people there. Correct. But at least you can go. At least you can feel like you're doing something proactive. Yeah. And by the way, huge respect to actors because I could not deal with that level of rejection. Like going, 5 auditions a day, and
and looking at the people who are also up for the job with you, whether they're your same type or not, you're just like, also, let's look at everyone else who's also jobless. Yeah.
These are going to be the people I'm going to probably see at all the auditions now.
Correct.
But so, when I got to the city, I did the whole, like, send my resume to musicians and conductors and everything, which generally does not do a lot of good. Most of the way that musicians will get jobs is by subbing. It's one of those things where actors are about the only part of a Broadway show that has built-in coverage, because you can't just, call somebody up and be like, go on.
Sure.
To do all that, musicians, crew, everybody else,
wardrobe,
everybody, they train their substitutes themselves, and then if they need a night off, if they're sick, if they need to do something else, then they book their own subs and have them come in. And that's how you sort of start, is basically cold calling people, if you don't know them, people that are currently playing in Broadway orchestras, and saying, can I come learn your book? Can I sub for you? And of course, 90% of the time, the answer is no. I know I have my people.
Right.
But every now and again, your timing is right, or somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody who they're like, yeah, come on in. You can sit in the pit and watch. If I need anybody, I'll call you. And that usually will lead to subbing, and then the conductor likes you. None of that actually happened for me.
You're like, that's the normal route, that I didn't do any of that. Great.
But fair warning, this chat gets a little Andrew Lloyd Webbery. So if you're not into that, like, just substitute your favorite composer.
Sure.
There was in my sending of the resumes, one of the people that I sent a resume to is an amazing conductor, music director named Kristen Blodgett.
Sure.
She is still one of Andrew Lloyd Webber's international supervisor. I think she's in Korea right now, because that's one of the few places that the Phantom of the Opera is performing there. Right. That's the only show in the entire world that's performing.
Right. Isn't that crazy? That it's like Phantom, even in a global pandemic's like, we will still at least have one performer.
We've got our mask already.
Correct. We're ready.
Right. But she, sent her a resume, and I don't know that I heard from her initially, but it was one of those things, and this is the luck part of it. My memory of this was that it was August,
And this is, because you're 73 years old, this is 1904, right?
That's right, exactly. Yes, the electric light was just hitting the city, so it was very exciting.
Okay, great.
But this was like, I don't know how long ago, long enough ago that the original Cats was still running at the Winter Garden Theater.
Oh, crazy.
So, which turned out, by the way, spoiler alert, that was my first Broadway show that I ever played in, was the original Cats. Yes, in the backstage pit in the litter box. After that, I mean, I was at the very, very end of that run by the time I was there, because so you could tell it had been there for 20-some years or whatever.
Yeah.
But before we even get to that, I had sent her a resume, and it was August, and it was a normal August, unlike now, which is to say, like, nothing was happening. Like, maybe one or two shows were in rehearsals for the fall, but like it's August. Nothing's going on in the theater. And they needed, she has been and still is, when it comes back, one of the conductors for Phantom, and she supervised Phantom. They needed a new Carlotta, the big giant high.
Sure.
This does not happen, that woman.
Yes.
In Phantom. And apparently every pianist they had ever used for auditions was busy or out of town or on vacation. And so this apparently led to her like flipping through and like saying, I don't even remember who was casting it. Somebody calling me out of the blue and saying, we have to have these Carlotta callbacks. Will you come in and be the pianist? And of course, yes. Always yes, especially when, you're not 70 at the time and you haven't done anything. And I went in, and it was Kristen, and I believe one person from casting, and they had called like 5 women in, just no air conditioning, everybody sweaty, miserable messes.
Oh my gosh.
Singing high Ds. And I did not do a great job, because what this was is women were coming in and putting down these operatic arias in front of me.
Yeah, you're like, I'm used to playing Meadowlark. You're like,
I don't know that.
Yeah, I don't.
And while I have a background in classical music, that's what I studied as a kid. When they bring in their opera arias, nothing is marked. It's just everybody knows that in this measure, all of a sudden you stop dead after beat 3 so that the soprano can, do whatever. So like I was just playing this stuff and like upsetting a lot of high sopranos. If any of them were there that day, I apologize. But Kristen, sort of flagged that I was a good player and I didn't scream at any of the sopranos. I was just sort of like doing my thing. And she was like, wow, you're a really good player. Like, thank you. And 6 months later, she called and was like, we need a keyboard player on a tour of Cats. And so they trained me in New York. I got to sub at the Winter Garden a couple times to learn the show, and then off I went on my first job.
What a crazy story. Okay, so then what happens from there? So then it's like, then you just go and you sub and you bounce from show to show to show until you eventually how does that go? I mean, give us like shows that you started to sub in for at this point.
Oh God. Well, I mean, like I did touring for a little while. I toured with a couple shows, and like when you do that, there are no subs. So like you go out and you play like every show 52 weeks a year.
Yes.
I did Cats for about a year. I did some other things. And then after a couple years, I was like, okay, I'm done with the suitcase thing. This was cool. And don't get me wrong, like Cats, I got to go to Hawaii. I went to Anchorage, Alaska with Cats. I went to, I think, 47 of the 50 states.
Come on.
So this is fantastic. I was getting paid to see these places, some of which I would have never gone to, still wouldn't ever go back to. But the thing is, some were fantastic places that I had to see. And when you come back to the city, it does translate, but there's still that element of, that's great, you did tour, but this is Broadway.
Sure.
So you're still making cold calls. And, because I had done Cats, I was able to sub a little bit there. And, you get to know this person, and then they move to another show. And it's a slow process, or can be, but like, when you get fortunate, like then, like through the years, I mean, like I was the music director, not when it opened. Gary Adler was the music director of Avenue Q when it opened.
Sure.
And there was one of those things, he and I knew each other. And so I ended up conducting at Avenue Q at the Golden Theater. I was the MD there for about a year in the middle of their run. Did
Crazy.
that, subbed on Thoroughly Modern Millie.
You did?
Playing a little Thoroughly Modern Millie. All like the whole time that Altar Boys was running, 2005 to 2010, like I've always had these parallel things. Like I love writing, I love playing, and I've never stopped doing either. So I was still subbing and playing. That period that I was the MD for Avenue Q was while Altar Boys was running.
Crazy. And so for those who are following, I assume if you're watching live, well, I'm going to assume nothing. I'll assume you don't know anything about Michael. Yeah. Michael also wrote, like I can barely remember. He wrote a show called Altar Boys, which ran off Broadway for 5 years at New World Stages. When I moved to New York City, I graduated college in 2004. One of the first shows I saw before my first cruise ship contract, my first professional gig, I saw this little thing called Altar Boys. And I remember I was in the third row on the side, and I sat there and I was like, this show is crazy. And the guy who was playing Abraham, even though I'm not Jewish, I was like, God, that guy who's playing Abraham, Dennis Munch, I was like, he looks exactly like me. Oh, gosh. And then I went and did this cruise ship. I remember on the cruise ship getting on a Saturday to Best Buy and buying on my day off the cast recording. And was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be in this. And then I auditioned for it, I think like 80,000 times.
Did you? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I have auditioned for the Off-Broadway company a couple times, not 80,000, probably 3. I went in for the tour, the first national once, and then I booked when it went out second national with David Corns' set, and they took some of the stuff from Chicago and made it look shinier.
That's right, I remember that.
Yeah, and then I did it in California. It's a Music Circus is the dance captain in Abraham, and we put it in the round. And then I joined the New York company, and first day I walked out and I looked at the third row on that little seat where I had sat like 5 years before, and I was like, oh God, dreams do come true. And the first time I met you, I was like, what is this show is crazy. So like for those, let's talk about Altar Boys. I have one photo. This morning, you were sending over Sunset Boulevard photos, and I was like, oh, let's see if I have a photo from Altar Boys. So this is when I did the show.
There you go.
This was right before we closed. I am a mere child with no beard, living my off-Broadway New World Altar Boy dreams.
Right.
Talk to me about the evolution of the show, the creation of it. Had you written any other shows before Altar Boys? Was Altar Boys your first stab at writing and it just went really well? Talk to us all about the writing side, and then we'll get back into Sunset and your conducting life.
Well, the thing is, I had written some stuff before. When I was in college, there is a really, really old student-run theater group at Carnegie Mellon called Scotch and Soda, which is probably what drew it to me to it, because I'm like, alcohol theater, I'm in.
That's great.
But they've gotten away from this lately, but their original sort of MO was that they did original student-written shows.
Okay.
So they were written in really weird ways because, how long it takes for a show from fruition to being performed. But when you're there for 4 years, you're not writing a show for those 4 and then doing it. So I wrote a bunch of stuff for 3 different shows there.
Okay.
So I had written stuff before, but Altar Boys was really sort of the first thing that was written in a more normal way. Gary Adler, myself, Kevin DeLagula, 3 people writing the show. It was a little weird because Gary and I both wrote music and both wrote lyrics.
Yeah.
But that was a situation where I had known Gary. We had done a show together, and he's told the story before, but he was originally brought in because the original idea was, and I say this with affection, but to rip off Forever Plaid. Like the original idea was,
sure,
let's take hymns and do boy band arrangements of them, and that's going to be the show.
Hilarious. I didn't know that.
Yeah. That's where it started. And Gary was called in to basically be the arranger. And I always underline the fact that without Gary, this would never have happened, because he arranged a couple of them. Gary does that stuff really great. But as he says, he realized that that's funny for about 60 seconds.
Yeah.
How great thou art with crunchy harmonies. Fine.
Right.
But no. And so he was the one that said, I don't think this is going to work. And he wrote an original song. He wrote a version of the opening number. Wow. Very different. Well, half different than the version that
Yeah.
And when it started to go in that direction of original musical, he called me and said, look, I've done some writing before, but this is the first time he had really written a show too. And he was like, do you want to come in and let's do this together? And that's sort of off to the races we went. I still have a trunk full of Christian boy band songs, that we didn't use. Hard to repurpose those.
Sure. The revival, maybe the revival.
Yeah, sort of Altar Boys too, Altar Men.
Yeah, correct.
But yes, I mean, that's the thing. But in essence, yes, there were so many bumps and bruises through all of that, but like we got into the first year of the Nymph, the Musical Theater Festival, which nobody knew what that was. It was the first year.
And now RIP. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's the thing. We've come so far that things have come and gone.
Correct.
But it's we got in that and did, I think, 8 performances, because we did our 6 and then got extended and did 2 more. And that was in the fall of 2004. And then, so yes, it did basically go really well for a first show, especially something so quirky and unusual. And, it's not your typical show, as you well know. Yeah. But it seemed to work. It was either the right time or the right material or the combination, certainly the right cast. A lot of things hit, Stafford Arima, Christopher Kelly, Lynn Schenkel, the absolute right people. Yeah. And all the designers, the people, Natasha Katz came in and did the lights for that thing, which she didn't need to come do this thing.
Sure.
But Stafford had worked with her and was like, I think you're going to do great, because she's amazing. And she was way too big to do that. But she did, and got super lucky that it seemed to strike a chord, so to speak. And 5 years later.
Right. And it felt like everyone was sharing the same brain creatively, which, again, as you say, there's so many moving parts. I often think of Hamilton is another show that it feels like everyone just kind of got what the picture was, and then it was executed in every department just so perfectly. And then when I joined the cast, the music director at the time was this random guy who we found out we have this day. We were born one day apart. He's January 3rd. I'm January 4th, 85. And we're talking and chatting. And he was like, oh, you've done the tour. Great. Okay, here's the differences. We had these rehearsals. And he's like, oh, I also write my own music. And so you find in the music world that these people like yourself are like, oh yeah, I conduct. That's what I do at night. And then during the day I write. And, every once in a while a show takes off. And he's like, I have some shows that are going to go well. And of course it was Justin Paul. It went mildly well. Mildly, he did okay. He's doing okay for himself. And so it's the music director component of it. It seems like you guys are the one in the building always that have your hand in a million different creative pots, both it seems on the writing end and the conducting and playing end. It seems like a lot of the time. So it's, I don't know, you guys are always the most, and women are always the most exciting people on the creative team that I connect with the most as a singer.
Well, we try, to be exciting, mostly for you, so that you have someone to connect with. That's
correct. It's really all about me, as we've all heard. Another big part of your life, before we get to Sunset Boulevard, another part of your life, Radio City Music, Christmas Spectacular.
Yeah.
How many years have you done it? When did you first do it? Tell me everything.
Well, and the thing is, there's 2 aspects to that. I was involved with that. They used to have 6, 7 out-of-town companies, as well as the New York.
I grew up seeing the Detroit company every single year of my life.
There you go. So odds are that if you were at home at all over Christmas, you probably, because I used to go to Detroit, I think 3 or 4 years, I went there to the Masonic Temple. We would rehearse in the Masonic Temple in catacombs of that giant building. I helped put that together as either the associate music director or music director I was in Branson once. We used to rehearse in Myrtle Beach. There was an abandoned mall in Myrtle Beach where they would rehearse all the companies. One would be in the abandoned JCPenney, one would be in the abandoned Dress Barn, and Linda Haberman, who was the overseeing director, so that she could basically go, up and down the hallways and check in on every company at the same time. And so I did that for a number of years. And unfortunately, all of those out-of-town ones are done with recorded music. So our job as music directors and associates would be, piano and drums in the rehearsal room, and then we would go to the theater for tech. But once it was up and running, then we'd go home.
I had no idea.
Unfortunately, that is the way those were done. And then New York was a natural extension of that. I ended up writing a number for the New York show. It's not in the show anymore. They cycle through, but for 2 or 3 years, maybe 4, there was a video game number in the New York show where the Rockettes were battling, and it was a 6-7 minute animated movie that was in sync with the live Rockettes, and all the music was being played by the orchestra live, because in New York it is a 36 piece orchestra, I think.
Wow.
And then as part of that, for 2 years, I was in the orchestra. I auditioned, because that is one of the few orchestras you do audition for. They do auditions every year, and I was the first keyboard player for 2 years of that, playing 67 shows every day, starting at 9 in the morning. Christmas. Woohoo!
God. And then I the year I saw it, I've had too many friends and girlfriends that have been Rockettes. And the whole stage where it comes up and you guys are over and down, and it came up and you were at the keyboard. I was like, wait, what?
It is the weirdest, most iconic thing to because it sounds sort of cheesy, especially at 9 in the morning when you're in a tuxedo at 9 in the morning, but still rising up on that giant band car that comes up to stage level, and it, as you say, can go on the stage, it can go back down. It really, I'm super glad that I was a part of it, because it's Radio City Music Hall. It feels a certain way that, not even the biggest Broadway theater feels like that, because it's a throwback. It would never be built today.
No, it never. It's wild. That's still on my bucket list. I've been waitlisted. I've made it all the way to the end, but never have made it. I think I'm getting a little long in the tooth, but there's still time. I think there's some
old ushers in the show. Right. Singing ushers, you can still do it.
Okay, I'm not letting go of the dream yet, just because of COVID. Caitlin has a question for you, which will then launch us into Sunset Boulevard of the Palace. She says, "Hi, Michael. Is there a dream show you still hope to music direct for?"
I'll give two answers to that, because obviously the new shows that are coming, you don't know what those are. So
Sure.
that can be the most exciting thing, because you're actually in the trenches, sort of. It's the music director's job to carry out the vision of the composer and the lyricist, and of course the director and everything. But when it's brand new, you're in there helping out. So that can be extremely exciting. As far as shows that exist, the two shows that I always come back to are Into the Woods and Falsettos.
Yeah.
Those two shows, both because they're challenging musically, they're practically sung through, but also I just love those shows.
Yeah.
I'll also do Little Shop in the Red Barn Playhouse in the basement, non-union, anywhere you want me to do, because I think that show is brilliant.
Yes.
I'll go do Little Shop anywhere you want.
I was supposed to do it. It's my dream show. I was supposed to do it. I was supposed to start rehearsals March 29th in Michigan. And we know what happened on March 12th. So if they lose their music director, I'll put in a good word for you if and when it ever happens.
I love that show, though. It's brilliant. But.
Yeah, it is. I think it's perfectly constructed. Yeah. Okay, so Palace Theater, it's what we've done all week. Purple curtains, the whole thing. Sunset Boulevard, this revival comes along. I think I know the answer to the question is, how do you get involved? Because I think we know the answer, but tell us, how do you get involved with Sunset Boulevard Revival?
Yeah, my Weber sort of line, I've intersected him so many times throughout. I just music directed Unmasked, ironically, at the Paper Mill.
You did? I didn't know that.
We closed on March 1st. We made it under the door like Indiana Jones grabbing his hat. We got through the whole run. But even the last thing I did before COVID shut down was this new Weber show. But yeah, it was, and ironically, Kristen and I have known each other through the years, but we didn't work together a million times. We worked together here in a bit and then lost touch a little bit. The Cats revival at the Neil Simon Theater happens. And the Keyboard One book is a tricky little book for that show. And so the guy that was playing it didn't know a lot of people in New York. He wasn't from New York. And so he had asked, hey, are there people that that have done this in the past? And she's like, well, here's the list of names of people. Called me, reconnected with Kristen, apparently did a good job. But again, timing was perfect. I subbed there for her and did a good job on it again. And she was like, that's right, I remember this guy. And then Sunset was supposed to happen 6 months later. And so they were just at the point of staffing the show. And she called me up, and
crazy.
Bam, bam, boom, away we go.
And Sunset, which I'm going to show some pictures that you sent in, which I love. Sunset, if for those who didn't see the revival, I know we had some people this week on Monday, we say, what shows have you seen? And a lot of people had seen it. But I love, here's the set design, the set model that you sent in. The crazy thing about this is that it's you know, the whole orchestra is on stage through the entire performance, correct? You're never in the pit.
Absolutely. Yeah. That the pit was open because, I mean, spoiler alert, you know, when she shoots him, he falls into the pit at the end. So the thing is, the pit wasn't covered, but it was not used. That was the only thing that it was used for in the show. The entire orchestra, 40 people on stage, which that's another thing. Like, even if I'd never worked with Kristen before, when they call you and say, we're doing a revival of Sunset Boulevard, Glenn Close is coming back to do it.
Right.
And we're doing it with a 40-piece like symphonic orchestra on stage. Like, there is no answer to that other than yes. Like,
right.
I mean,
you're like, when do we start? Yeah,
that's never going to happen.
Right. Ever.
I mean, likely ever again, just because it was only possible here because it was a limited run. It was Glenn. It was Sunset. Because I can't imagine that it, you know, well, you know, it's not common to have an orchestra of 40 people.
Correct. Yeah. If it's not Radio City, you're like, it's not happening.
That's right. And we were bigger than the Radio City Orchestra by a few people. Like, and that's
crazy.
Crazy.
And then for those, so the guy, this photo you sent me, presumably the guy standing in the middle is ALW.
That is Andrew. Yes. I didn't take this picture, obviously, but somebody, I think one of the swings might have taken that picture from the balcony. That's where he was talking to I think he was listening to something and talking to the orchestra. And it's just a very cool photo just to see, you know, him listening to his own work.
So then, okay, so you're the assistant conductor and you're also keys one.
Yep.
So then when's your first time, and we have a photo, I don't think this is your first time, but this is you conducting the magic.
No.
Or was it your first time?
It actually is, because the thing is, and this is the full caveat, like, I never conducted the show. This was a limited run. It was Glenn, and you can see in that photo, actually, because the orchestra was on stage, all of the actors, unless they're up on those bridges, are behind the conductor. So, like, she had a tiny little video monitor about yay big, but it was not super, like, you know, first of all, you couldn't look down like this, but also you couldn't tell which one was Glenn on the monitor that was that big. So, you know, it wasn't super useful for like reading somebody. So this is one of the most amazing things about this show and about Kristen Blodgett, who conducted it, is that she was doing it all like on just instinct and hearing. So like, and Glenn is, I can't say enough good things about her and her portrayal of Norma Desmond.
Yeah.
But what's amazing about her is that her performance was always a little bit different, not in an inconsistent way, not in a, hey, it's Broadway way, but like but it always made sense. So like if something was a little different that night, she would be a little different to match it. And it would always, but to do that without seeing the breath
is wild.
Insanely wild. So the thing is, Kristen conducted every show, every performance of that run, except I think there were 2 shows literally about a week before we ended where the woman, Kristen, was like hooked up to like intravenous fluid sick in the dressing room, and she was still going to go on to the point where, you know, and there was an associate conductor, Dale Reeling was the associate conductor of that and played keyboard 2 next to me. And like, it's not like he wasn't ready to go and trained and everything. It's just, she takes it so seriously and the whole thing. And so Dale conducted, that's the first time he ever conducted, like 2 weeks before we closed, he went on and conducted 2. And because of that, I came down and conducted the exit music and the bows.
Wow.
Because we knew at that point, like, there wasn't going to be an opportunity for me to conduct the whole show. Because we were a week away from closing. And so I got to conduct a little bit. So some of the musicians and so forth, like, snapped photos because they were like, you know, so for 2 shows, I conducted the bows and the exit music, got my time in front of the 40-piece orchestra. It would have been awesome to conduct the whole show. But I also knew going in, you know, this was like, it's a beast of a show. Like, it's wall-to-wall music, blind. With, you know, Glenn behind you the whole time. Like, it's
wow,
a beast.
That's crazy. Laura has a great question, which I love. Laura Walker Russell says, do you favor the pianist role or MD role, or does it depend on the show?
And that would be my sister.
Hi, sister. I was going to say, Laura's never joined us before. Hi, Laura.
You know, it depends. The playing, there's a lot of fun to playing. there's a lot of fun to writing, there's a lot of fun to conducting. But like Unmasked is a good example. Like that was an onstage orchestra, considerably smaller, 8 people, like a rock band kind of thing. We were on stage, I was playing and conducting. And the thing is, when you do it all at once, it's a lot. It's a lot. So if you want to come in and make music and enjoy and then go on your way, playing is awesome. When you're the MD, it's, half that job is managerial. Like you're scheduling and you're doing this and you're teaching and everything. And that's a lot to do. Plus, you're driving the bus. Yeah. So like, if things are off or if something goes wrong, it really, no disrespect to actors, but like it comes down to the stage manager and the MD. Those are the ones that in the moment of a performance, if something goes off the rails, those are the people that can do the big picture things to fix it. Yeah. Everybody else can do small picture, but like, so it's a lot of responsibility. So it depends on my mood. Like if I just want to come in and do a show, it can be awesome to just play the show and be like, not my circus, not my rodeo. Like it's just, and there's a lot of fulfillment to making music with the actors and with the other musicians. When you conduct, then your brain is everywhere.
Crazy. I have to say, as an actor, we collaborate on these shows and there's so many people involved, from front of house to back, and just front to back. It's a million people. But as an actor, you think like, we all have egos, right? You think like, oh, I was a little off today. I wonder if, or, the tempo is a little fast or whatever. So my ex was in Wicked, and it was the first time ever I'd gone on the tour and I'd been visiting her on the tour enough that the MD was like, hey, come and sit next to me in the pit. I think it's always good for an actor to like see the world from my seat. And I was like,
super valuable, by the way. If anybody ever offers actors out there an opportunity to do that, go sit in the pit for a performance. It's eye-opening.
It is wild. It was wild, one, to see that like the conductor in an orchestra pit, well, one, none of the musicians can see. So that blew my mind. I was like, you can't see anything. The conductor is like the only one who's like the connective tissue between you not seeing and us not seeing you. And then it blew my mind that like, I was like, they're not even paying attention. They're playing their book. They're clued into the conductor, but really like, that's it. I mean, they're not, I don't know. It just blew. I was like, wait, you guys aren't like hanging on my every cue line and word? Like you're not cued into my performance. They're like, no, I'm playing my banjo in Wicked.
That's right. And the thing is, and that said, like they still will notice if somebody like says something different, like all the heads will go like that because they'll notice that. But yeah, I sort of liken it to the like, the guy that's on the fly rail, the guy that's, queuing the automation, like they're focused on what they need to do. And the thing is that sometimes is big picture, like the music director, the stage manager and stuff like, and sometimes is super, super focused. So like the dresser doing the quick change in the corner, like they're aware of what's going on stage, but only because they know they have 30 seconds to finish the change.
Right.
Like that's where the focus is. But yeah, absolutely. The musicians in the pit, I've literally, it's sort of a joke, but like, there are times when actors will say like, oh, you're conducting tonight, because the same thing can happen on stage where your focus is out and the performance and you might.
And sometimes that light bulb moment of, oh, you're conducting tonight happens in the middle of the opening number when you look down and it's someone different and you're like, oh, I didn't know Michael was playing tonight.
I hope this is going to work out okay.
Yeah. Correct. Fingers crossed. Tina says, let's talk about COVID. So what role would you like to play after COVID and Broadway reopens? Let's hearken that, I guess, to like right after Broadway. Is it like, I want to do this one show? Is Unmasked maybe going to come in? Or is it like, I will play any book anywhere? I just want to play music again.
Honestly, I think that's probably where most people are. Like, it's like the way I've described this is like the entire industry just got off the bus from Pillow. Like, except that there's no food chain above you. Like, so it's not like you can look, like literally the 15-time Tony Award winner and the kid about to graduate from college are in the exact same boat right now. Yeah. So everybody is in that, like, I want to make music. I want to tell stories. Like, that's what I always, because that's the one thing that every person backstage at the theater is there to do. Like, whatever your job is, we're there to tell the story. So that's what I want to do. I want to tell the story, any story at this point. Because it's been too long. And as people have pointed out, like, the arts are often sort of not forgotten, because God knows everybody went immediately to Netflix and immediately to streaming services because it was the escape. But I also get it. Like, I get how when you're dealing with everything that we're dealing with right now, it can be hard to say
that's essential.
And, the people that put on silly costumes and pretend they're British, dance and tap dance, like, that feels frivolous, but it's so important.
Yeah.
We have to have those stories being told. We have to tell those stories. So yeah, when it comes back, I mean, I will, like, I've been in the Disney world as well. I mean, I won't be subbing at Frozen again because Frozen is not coming back.
R.I.P. Yeah.
Very sad. But like, both Aladdin and Frozen have been shows I've been doing a lot. Was doing a lot. So I presume that that's where things will start back. But yeah, it's just time to, like, I haven't played live music other than just myself at the piano since March. You can't do a group. And that is, that's really hard. Same thing as an audience. It's like, it's not the same. It's great that these streaming things are showing, like, great performances of She Loves Me and stuff. That's great, but it's not the same.
Right. Yeah. And even like, I was like, we'll bring our stories online on a much smaller scale and we'll do like a virtual tour, but it's not the same. And the moment I put on a mask and stand outside and do a tour, and it's uncomfortable for like 2 minutes and then it's back to normal, you're like, this is what I miss. I just miss looking at a person and being like, let's talk about theater. Let me talk about your shows. What shows have you seen here? Tom has a question. He says, hi, Michael. Have you been working on writing anything new during COVID?
Yeah, I mean, yes. And I think we have to sort of call it out here. And a lot of people have talked about this on various social media platforms. Creativity during this is not easy.
Yeah.
Because again, the same thing that we were just touching on, like, when you're sitting down, especially as a writer, in front of a white piece of paper, white computer screen, and being like, what if ... That's hard to do when, like, the TV's over here talking about, people dying and the racial injustice and all the horrible things that are going on right now. It's super hard to be like, how long should this tap break be? But yes, I mean, I've got a show or two. There's a show of mine called Being Theo that we had done a presentation of it. In fact, I think that's the last time I saw you in person, Tim.
Yeah, and I've seen a couple presentations of it, so I've loved watching the development. I
mean, we did Bucks County Playhouse does a thing outside of Philadelphia, in Bucks County, where they do the Hammerstein Festival every year, which showcases new shows. And last June, by which I mean, 2019, last June, the last time there was a June,
right.
We went down and did that, and did a presentation of it in front of their audience to sort of get a read on where we were with it. And, those sorts of things have, I think, across the board, a lot of that stuff it's stopped wherever it was
right.
In March. Because you can do a reading of a play on Zoom. You can't do a musical, even if you wanted to.
And not that anyone wants to see.
No, that's the thing. Readings are hard enough, much less when you're like looking in the corners to figure out who's talking.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, like, I've got that. There's some new projects that I am talking to some people about starting to write new things, because this is a good time for that, because the quickest musical takes years until it's going to be ready to be performed. But yeah, it's, no lie. Like, there are days where it's like, I just can't. And I think that's okay. Like, I think for everybody, whether your creativity is your job or just part of your life, it's okay during all of this to just be like, okay, no, today's not a creative day.
Yeah, I'm going to put in the comments, I'm going to drop a comment right now to a link to YouTube that is a song that Michael wrote while during this. So he has been writing a little bit. So make sure you check that out. It's wonderful. I watched it this morning. That she's a very talented singer. Who is it? Joanne something?
Joanne Clifton. And this is a great example, actually. This is an international song cycle where they got together once this had been going on for a few months, and were like, let's get writers from all around the world, and just all that we were given was, the theme is on hope. So whatever that means to you, it can be, the lack of hope, holding on to hope, whatever. And people they did a 3-part song cycle that was basically like, I think each one was about an hour long over 3 different weeks. I think you can still go to, it was an affiliation with a theater in London called the Other Palace, which ironically enough, which is a much smaller palace than our Palace Theater.
Sure.
And I think you can still go to their YouTube channel and watch the whole song cycle if you want. But this, what Tim's talking about is there's my song is on my YouTube channel, so you can. But yeah, she's never knew her before. This is a great thing. Never met her except via Zoom, and
crazy.
there you go.
And here we are. That's hashtag 2020 in a nutshell. It's crazy. You have been awesome. We're going to put up all the ways to follow you because everyone should follow you. So I love you have so many ways to follow you. So there's your YouTube, 3 Names Music, which I love. Your Twitter, M. Patrick Walker, Insta, Michael Patrick Walker, which is also linked on our story and our Instagram. You'll see there. And then your website, www.michaelpatrickwalker.com. You guys should all go follow him. It's incredible stuff from Altar Boys upward. You do really great work. I'm so glad to have met you, have gotten to do your show, sing it 8 times a week for a couple of years of my life, and
survived most of it,
and survived. Correct. Yeah. You're like made it out alive. Well, we did this, I believe, for the Altar Boys Actors Fund thing. And God, I was like, I don't ever remember it being this high. And did we sing this 8 times a week? And
so many of those actors literally were like, are you sure I sang that?
This has to be up a full step. You're like, no.
That, by the way, that's a great video that Tim is a part of. That's also on my YouTube channel. You can take a look at that. We got back, I think, 40 some actors through the years from the original cast to the final cast. That was a great experience, if a little bit of tightening for the boys that hadn't sung that high in a long time.
Yeah, it was like, do all the sweetening, all the tightening. We could all use it. Our chords are no longer 20 years old.
No one.
Michael, you have been incredible. Thank you for spending your Saturday with us. Good luck with the rest of the shutdown and quarantine. Don't go crazy. Drink lots of vodka.
You too.
And I will. I'll switch to beer instead of vodka, but sure. Stay creative as much as you can. And we'll certainly keep an eye out for you once everything's back up and running for that Falsettos or Into the Woods revival that you're conducting. I hope.
That's right. Awesome. Thanks.
You're incredible. Have a great Saturday, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Isn't he marvelous? So talented. And I love these Thoroughly Modern Millie stories of, people coming to New York and just kind of setting their suitcases down, and then things happen. I don't know. This business is crazy, but it's magical. For those who saw the Sunset Boulevard revival, it was a wild experience to see the entire orchestra, to hear that music, the car chase. Everything about it was wild. So if you didn't get to see it, I don't know what to tell you. I'm so sorry you missed it. Go on YouTube. I'm sure there's clips and things. I've gone down this Altar Boys rabbit hole in prepping to talk with Michael. And so later on our YouTube page, I found a video of the B-roll from when I did the tour when I was a wee 25. No, I don't know how old I was. Maybe 20. I think I was 23, 2 years before I started Broadway Up Close. So get ready for that later today. Seeing little Tim Dolan in a yarmulke. You're welcome in advance. We released some new stuff that'll be coming out tonight. This is your sneak peek. We haven't put anything out about it yet, but I wanted to give you the first glimpse. One of my favorite illustrators I love, you're still commenting, Laura. Laura says, I'm biased, but I think he's great too, said Michael's sister. I love that. Just family supporting family, COVID dreams coming true. One of my favorite illustrators is Squigs, Justin Squigs Robertson. He does the Lights of Broadway show cards. He illustrates for Broadway.com every opening night. Before the shutdown, we built our Broadway sign, and I said to him, is there a world where we've never sold prints or posters or anything, but is there a world where you would draw our Broadway sign? And so we finally have them. And there's, this is his beautiful illustration of our Broadway sign in black. And then we also are going to start selling it in white. And so it's an 8-inch by 8-inch little print, little piece of Broadway that you can take home with you while Broadway's dark and not happening. That's available as of now on our website. It'll be on our social media, the full announcement later, but the 21 of you watching are getting a very fancy sneak peek. And then we collaborated on, he does these Lights of Broadway show cards. I've been obsessed with them for a long time. And so I thought, I don't know that there's any way we could collaborate. And so we talked, and so what it is we're doing 10 theaters at a time, one that's demolished in each pack. And this is the first set that is the 2019 edition. It's his featured pack that is, I think, on his rare list of not the ones that are in every mix pack. And so we sat down, and so what it is, the colors coordinate to who owns the theater. And then in each card, this is, of course, my favorite, the Belasco, you have the marquee that you can see that he drew in there. And then he actually drew the actual facade of the theater, and then hidden way in there, it's hard to tell because computers and technology, but you see like the guy boxing for Golden Boy, all the shows that have played there, he also has put those there. And then my edition, Welcome to My Life, on the very back, you have all of our fun facts about the theater, our Broadway Up Close logo, of course, and you have just these little packs of little take-home cards of all the different theaters. We're working on the 2020 set currently. The next set, he's a genius. To me, he's like the Al Hirschfeld of our day. It's so wonderful collaborating with these people, especially when, like Michael says, we're not collaborating a lot in this time. So check out all that. All of that is on our website under the prints and cards section, which you'll see all the way at the bottom. Hillary has one last question, curious question. Is anyone cleaning the theater since it's closed? I believe there's still some sort of small cleaning crews that come in. The question we get a lot is the ghost light still on? The ghost lights are all, as far as we know, still lit in every theater. But I think the major overhaul of cleaning will happen really right before we reopen. There's no point in cleaning it now if it's going to be empty for another 6 months, which is sad to say, but it's the truth. You guys have been awesome. This has been one of our longest Saturday Noon on Broadway sessions. I could have talked to Michael all day. And so I hope you enjoyed it. You can follow us as always. If you want to get that merch that I just talked about or any of our other stuff, you can always do that on our website, BroadwayUpClose.com/souvenirs. And if you want to follow along, give us a like, give us a shout out that you spent the Saturday with us. I love talking to you guys on Instagram and Facebook and all the things. So at Broadway Up Close is where you can always find us there. You guys have been awesome. Thanks for spending the last portion of your week with us talking about the Palace. On Monday is going to be an exciting guest next week and an exciting theater. So I hope you'll join us for that. Another 1913 theater. And you guys have been wonderful. Have a wonderful Saturday. Happy Saturday Noon on Broadway. And we are now officially one day closer to Broadway. Bye, you guys.